Hello, good evening, everybody. So, tonight's talk, I wanted to talk a little bit about the art and the science of meditation. So, this is something that I've been interested in since, I don't know, maybe 20, 30 years or something like that. And it is indeed a art as well as a inner science, so to say. And the reason I say inner science is because in regular science, what people do is they get an idea and then they go test it and they verify the results. Well, in meditation, you're the scientist and you're the observer, and a lot of times the results are seen within. And so it's a little bit tricky sometimes to describe some of these things to other people who've not had any taste or experience in the practice of meditation. So first of all, what is it? Why would somebody be interested in learning a little bit about meditation? And why would somebody find some health benefits from even a little bit of practicing the art and science of meditation? Well, meditation essentially means a awareness of inner focus, or paying attention is, I guess, the easier way of saying it. So when we're out and about in the world, we're normally paying attention to all sorts of fun distractions and things that can kind of come in. So I've got my little distraction floating along here, and in the external world, external to me, it looks like, oh wow, it's a cute little thing, I better go grab it. I might love it and want to bring it towards me. I might hate it and want to push it away. I might be afraid of it. You know, there's all sorts of different responses to things in the external world. And then similarly, as we learn to observe things in the external world and pay attention to kind of our everyday moments and things. For example, mindfulness has become a very popular term that people like to practice, and that means, for example, if you're eating dinner, that you really focus on just eating dinner at that one moment. So you're not eating dinner and looking at your Facebook, you're not eating dinner and watching TV. Sure, conversation and stuff can be happening at dinner. It's not to say be a silent dinner eater. But the idea of doing one thing at a time is becoming a little bit foreign in this world of super multitaskers, people that want to kind of do everything all at the same time. And what people find is that if you're trying to multitask, at some level the brain's not actually really multitasking. It's getting very distracted and very dissipated, as it were. So instead of it being a one-track mindset onto a particular topic, it's a little here, a little there, a little distracted by all the toys they're flying around, and kind of ends up getting dragged around by these external stimuli, as it were. And there's a lot of people that are trying to get our attention. For example, the Facebook algorithms are modified to get that news feed just a little bit more attention grabbing for each of the users. So they're trying to see if they can get you to stay on it for just a little bit longer and a little bit longer, so they can get more advertising dollars, because, you know, if people are on for a little bit longer, then they get a little more money and so forth. So basically, there's a lot of different ways in which we can use that avenue of our attention and kind of regain our sense of control of what is it that we're paying attention to, and are we looking at something in the external world and getting fascinated by it, whatever the it happens to be, or are we learning to calm down the mind and calm down the body, and to learn how to sit still for just a few minutes every day. And so this weekend I had the pleasure of meeting a couple of people who wandered over to the meditation center where I hung out, and they had just recently started to follow a whole food, plant-based, no added oils diet, and were curious to see if there was any linkage between that and meditation. And to which I said, of course, because if somebody is following a diet pattern that is very anti-inflammatory and very soothing to the body and to the nervous system, it's actually very complementary to the desire to learn how to focus the mind and settle the mind and explore the inner world, so to say. So basically, the mind is something a little bit nebulous to describe in a way, but we all know that it's expressed through our expressions, our emotions, our thoughts, our feelings, and in the physical sense, through the instrument of the body and the brain, in order to be able to animate all of these wonderful sensations and thoughts and communicate and so forth. And so the whole food plant-based diet very specifically is full of good nutrients that are very, very nourishing to the brain, that help to keep it energetic. And in the case of certain ones, for example, green tea was shown to have a particularly soothing effect on the brain as well, which may be why in certain parts of the world it's beloved in certain areas. So, to go on a little bit further about the mind and how we can learn to train our attention, it's really a self-training effort. I mean, really, it's something that people, if they're curious about it and want to do it, there's all sorts of various guided meditations that are available out there. Maybe I'll lead you in a few minutes to through a very simple one in the next segment of this as well. But basically, the mind is always going to be, generally speaking, trying to move from one thing to another. A lot of times people come in clinic and they complain about not being able to turn the mind off or something, as if we've got a magic off-on switch, and they want something to help with that. And of course, depending on what's going on, I usually recommend cognitive behavioral therapy and other things to help with settling down the anxieties and the worries of the day and so forth. But meditation is also a beautiful way of learning self-training to be able to more and more over time to be able to settle down those thoughts and fears and such. And knowing a little bit about how the mind functions can be very helpful for that. So right now, obviously, we're having a one-way-side discussion because I'm here and you're out there. And basically, in order to be able to communicate these ideas to you, naturally the mind has to be able to express through gestures, through speech, through vision, through, if you're actually sitting here with me, through hearing, the senses essentially, the physical body being able to communicate to somebody else. And when someone is looking not externally, but is starting to turn the attention to the inside, if it's done in a very systematic manner, in other words, that you practice the same sort of technique or same sort of pattern over and over again, just like with any skill, like learning how to cook or learning how to play the piano, it just gets slowly better and better with time. And of course, gets better faster with coaching, as it were, having somebody that's been doing meditative style practices for a while, being able to help out with that in a sense. And so by doing it in a very systematic manner, not only does the mind get trained to be able to flow in this new groove or this new pattern, but also other things in life tend to settle down as well. For example, if you have a set meditation time first thing in the morning and perhaps last in the evening, the body, the mind, everything starts to get kind of looking forward or ready for it, or ready to settle down. For example, when people get ready for dinner, boy, everything starts to thinking about, oh, that dinner was going to be so good, and you start to drool a little bit and everything. And when we get ready to go into the peace and the silence of and the calmness of meditation, after a while, the body starts and the mind starts to get kind of ready for it in the same sense, and things seem to kind of automatically start to settle down as well. So meditation is generally something that is taught person to person, as it were. There's all sorts of, as I mentioned, meditative styles out there. I hate to say the word styles per se, but that's how people commonly think of it. The type of meditation I'm talking about is not necessarily something that you get out of clicking a YouTube channel with some pretty music and flowers and kind of that sort of thing dancing in the background, which can be relaxing. I'll call it, a relaxation thing. And also, there's another version of that where people sometimes listen to a CD or something of essentially a fantasy journey where you close your eyes and next thing you know you're on a spaceship and you're flying off to Mars and doing all sorts of things in the imagination, which can also be a good relaxation or a good fantasy, as it were, imagination, to be able to access some of those things. Now, I'm not talking about as hallucinations or anything, because when you start to study the mind and you start to look at what kinds of thoughts and such are coming out, you generally will start to notice that there are some thoughts which are kind of accurate thoughts, some thoughts which are really not that accurate, but they might seem convincing in the moment. There's fantasy thoughts where you're just, like often, like I said, fantasy land, doing something. There's also thoughts of kind of sleep, basically very heavy and where it kind of lulls us into a state of not having any awareness of anything. So sometimes when people first start to practice some style of meditation, they might go into a quiet room, have the lights on a little bit low, learn how to sit still with the head, neck, and spine straight, and, put your fingers in the little finger lock, symbolic of kind of closing the loop and keeping all that distraction to the inside, I guess. And the next thing you know, start to fall asleep. And that's another type of state of mind which we'll not cover tonight on there. And that, by the way, can sometimes mean it's a sign of needing to practice a little bit more, or simply that you need to get more sleep to be able to fully meditate. If someone is eating very heavy, I'll just say American style of foods, what we commonly find in our culture, you might find it very difficult to settle down to meditate, mostly because the food tends to be a little bit agitating to the system, tends to be a little bit inflammatory, so the nerves and the muscles like to stay a little bit agitated, as it were. And also, if you try to settle down and meditate immediately or shortly after having, let's say, dinner, next thing you know, you might start to be burping rather than sitting quietly as well. So, all right, so I'm going to go ahead and hit the finish button for this brief introduction to meditation, and then I'll come back in just a few minutes and lead a very simple meditation practice. More on this to come. See you in a minute. Bye-bye.